Hello, everybody. Welcome to, I have no idea what number episode this is.
116.
It's 116. Of course it is. I'm Brian Nemhauser, ad hoc blogger on Twitter. We've got the whole crew tonight, and it's gonna be a show, folks. It is a lot going on in the world. Not most of it having to do with your Seattle Seahawks, but we are going to talk all about Seahawks tonight. Let me bring in the fellas here. We've got at Nathan Ernst. We've got Nathan Ernst at Nathan E11 on Twitter. How you doing, Nathan?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, I feel like you will judge me for this. We got this problem with masking here, but I have got an IPA.
I would say it looks like some kind of a hazy IPA.
It's an IPA in a Pilsner glass. I feel like you would have a problem with that.
Oh, I have no rules on that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. It's excellent. Georgetown Bodie IPA.
The Bodie Zaffa?
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Yes, very good.
What's the Brian? What's the drink you love? It's like
Moscow Mule.
I had like 4 of those on election night. Alex was just pouring them. I'm sorry.
Do you have the bronze glass or whatever?
We do.
Copper.
We do. We
Is
put
it
it on. We put it on our freaking wedding registry and put a really expensive one and made other people pay for it. It was amazing.
That's one of those where I'm sure if you did blind tests, like 100% out of 100, nobody would tell the difference. But it absolutely makes a difference to have it out of the special.
It does. You fill it with ice. It's cold. You put a little lime on there. Like everything, just like that drink, easy, good. Like does the job. It's fantastic. As Evan can tell you a little, I think Nathan could as well. I do tend to get a little belligerent when I've had a few drinks, so I can't promise I will behave myself tonight. I will do my best to keep my language PG. I don't know if I can promise the same for our next host, Evan Hill at Evan in SEA. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just want to let the audience know that if Brian says a word that, really deeply offends you, you can email him about it. It's not just me. If I say an offensive word, you can email Brian. But if Brian says a really bad word, I encourage you to email him.
You know why, folks? The reason Evan is saying that is because I regularly share with the crew the amount of complaints I get, mostly about Evan. It is like, that guy, what is going on? I will never watch the show. The funniest thing is, I think like 70% of the audience wouldn't watch the show if you weren't here.
Oh, that's bullshit.
There's probably another 70% of people that would watch the show if you weren't here. So like it's an interesting challenge.
There was somebody in the YouTube comments or for our last show that was saying that you are too good for us. You need to split off. We're dragging you down. Start your own show.
To me or to Brian?
No, to you.
Oh, yeah.
You're the star of the show. You're the one that makes it go. We're dead weight. You
guys, I just take a couple drinks every Wednesday and show up here. There's not
really
too much.
That's shocking to find out.
All right. Let me take that as a moment to bring in our last co-host, the man, the myth, the Canadian legend himself, Jeff Simmons, at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. How are you, man? I think things must be totally normal up north, yeah?
I've never felt more Canadian than I have this week, and just reading your guys' thread all day, and I'm trying to keep up, and I just find it so fascinating. I'm so far out of the loop in terms of what you guys are talking about all day on this stuff. So I've actually learned a lot, and it's been pretty cool just to following all like the different state updates. And so I don't know. I found this week really interesting so far, just as the lone Canadian guy.
Jeff, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
It's not a political question. It's logistical. I'm a couple drinks in, bitch. Jeff, how do presidential elections or whatever the heck you have as your leader in Canada work? Is it like by territory, or is it just a national vote count? Like
egg stands?
What's the like condensed?
It's like a maple syrup contest.
Yes.
Oh my God.
No, it's very similar. It's very similar. It's a much less interesting version of what you guys do. Canadian politics is one of the least interesting things. It's a joke. It's a running joke about how boring Canada politics is and how no one outside of Canada would ever follow it.
So do you guys like have your own version of electoral votes? Is that it?
We do, and it's not great. And like our prime minister right now is kind of a joke. And like you were talking about earlier before the show about a guy who got like a Trump's $1 million loan. Our guy is like it's like a super rich guy, like good looking guy who has like zero political skills. He's just like a complete figurehead. And like Trump always picks on him. He's kind of a running joke. So I don't want to make fun of other politics or even spend any time talking about Canadian politics because it will put all our listeners to sleep. So again, your country's much more interesting. I don't want to get into Canada politics. It is horrible.
Yeah, we're going to steer clear as much as we can of what you call interesting, Jeff, political conversations on this side of the border. Guys, I had a weird experience tonight. I have to share it.
Oh boy.
I turned on the 49ers against the Packers.
I watched too much of that.
And first of all, it just felt weird. I was like, football felt like a foreign like concept. I was like, what is going on? I have no idea what's happening in this game. And then the 49ers like made a play and I actually found myself like excited. It was I don't know if I've ever felt that way about the 49ers, but I just really, they really pose no threat to the Seahawks at this point. They've been defanged, and the Packers do pose a threat. And as evidence tonight, you know, it looks like the end of the 49ers for this season. How are you guys feeling coming out of that game this weekend? Jeff, you want to start the 49er conversation?
Yeah, I also watched a lot of that game tonight, probably more than I should have, but I'm in one of these pools that if you pick one team to win a week, you advance. So I picked against San Francisco. So I actually watched way too much of that game. They have nothing left. The Seahawks broke them, and they were starting to gain some momentum, and with the COVID stuff and then the injuries, they were playing basically a practice squad roster tonight. And watching them was almost sad. And like I kind of agree with you, Brian. Like I kind of was just cheering for them. Just they felt so sad, and they were such underdogs. It was honestly painful to watch how bad they are now.
Hold up.
Yeah.
Are you exuding empathy for the 49ers?
No, I felt bad. Like I felt bad about how sad their roster looked, but like.
So you felt bad for them?
Yeah, they look pathetic.
I'm going to give you a chance to reevaluate what you just said.
Well, I didn't feel. Yeah, I guess. Okay, I'll take it back. Fuck them.
Yeah, don't let him bully you, Jeff. You're allowed to have your own independent perspective.
Oh, like I hate Aaron Rodgers. I hate Green Bay. I can't stand them. They're competing with the Seahawks. So this version of the Niners, I kind of felt bad if they had Nick Bosa playing or Sherman playing.
Jeff, fuck them to hell.
I don't like injuries. I don't like these COVID things. Like if it was the actual 49ers, then yeah. But like this was kind of a sad.
I will take demise any way I can get it.
Okay. Like it just was pathetic. It was so sad to watch what they're trotting out in the field.
Well, Evan, you kind of answered my question for you, which is like, I know how you feel about Aaron Rodgers. I know how you feel about the 49ers. How do you approach a game like this?
Well, let me start off with a take. Let me start off with, it's sort of a question take. And I actually want to go round robin with you guys. If Nick Mullins had started the entire season, you know where I'm going with this. Do the Niners have a better record going into that Seattle game last week?
No.
Than they do with Jimmy G?
No, that's an easy no.
Brian's a no? Nathan?
I mean, they're getting murdered by the Packers right now. They've scored 10 points. So
I mean, they'd be getting murdered with Jimmy G, right?
No, they hadn't. They just won 2 in a row. They beat the Rams, which is a good team, and
not because of Jimmy G.
But they beat him.
Well, Jimmy G also missed, I think, 3 games in that winning
streak. Sure.
It's just hard to look at Nick Mullins and say they're going to be a whole lot better.
Did you see Nick Mullins play tonight? I don't think you watched him play tonight.
I mean,
you didn't. Admit it.
No, I definitely did not.
You did not watch.
I did not realize.
Honestly, that's a good thing.
I did not realize there was a football game on till like an hour ago. To be honest with you,
You saved yourself. That was.
so I'm not declaring a correct answer either way. I'm just posing a question for the crowd, and you're feel free to discuss amongst yourselves. But I think it's a worthy question.
See, that's the thing, though. It drives me a little crazy because what that does is I feel like it almost gives an excuse for the 49ers.
No, it absolutely does not. No.
And it diminishes, I think, what the Seahawks did this weekend, which I think Nick Mullins is, yes, he played well against the Seahawks for a few snaps. He is not good. Like, he's not good. And like the 49ers have already had this happen during this season. Jimmy Garoppolo was not playing well. They bring in Nick Mullins, or Jimmy Garoppolo gets injured. They bring in Nick Mullins. And then Nick Mullins isn't playing well, so they bring in CJ Beathard. He doesn't play well, so they go back to Nick Mullins. They all suck. Like, so I just think that that's the thing. And like, to say Nick Mullins would have made a difference, I think takes away from the reality that the 49ers this year, man, I don't know if I've ever seen a team more snake bitten injury-wise than, I mean, in terms of not just the number of injuries, but it's like, if you listed their top 15 players, how many of those are still on the field?
So they showed a stat tonight during the game. Not one player who touched the ball in the NFC Championship last year for the Niners was playing tonight. They said that has never happened before in NFL history. They showed every single player that had a touch in that game. None of them were playing tonight. But I think the cool part of that Seahawks game, from like a bitterness and petty perspective, I think that was the game that broke 49ers fan on Jimmy G. I think that was the game where they just finally came to their senses that this guy is shit.
I mean, Nathan, I think it's not only, I agree with you, Jeff, but Nathan, I don't think it's only the Jimmy G part. Like, we've been seeing on repeat the replays of DK Metcalf getting hit by the 49ers and them bouncing off and getting injured. I feel like, I mean, this defense was still the kind of the backbone or the personality of that team. The Seahawks destroyed them this past weekend, and that defense looked like they lost all will to play. I don't know. I'm guessing you probably didn't watch much of tonight, but like, yeah, what's your perspective on where the 49ers go from here?
I was kind of thinking about that, like, you know, if you had tuned into a Niners podcast like 4 or 5 games into the 2015 Seahawks season, how much would be like similar to what we're saying right now, right? But I don't think that they're just, you know, a center change, right? Getting Drew Nowak out of there, right? I mean, their defense is in tatters. Seattle shredded it. Green Bay shredded it tonight. Garoppolo looks like a shell of himself. Mullins does not look like a diamond in the rough. They have a million injuries across like every unit basically at this point. So I don't know where they go from here. And I'm not saying that just to be like a homer or anything. Like, they're just so devastated by injuries. Like you're saying, they're completely snake bit. I don't know how they, you know, unless they kind of get a lot of people right at the right time and then go on a run, I don't know what they can do from here out.
Well, you know, the one thing the 49ers have done well.
What's that?
They have tanked. They have tanked really well. They got Nick Bosa by being really bad. You know, they got Eric Armstead. They got DeForest Buckner by being bad. And it looks like that's what's happening the rest of this year. I think they're going to have, you know, 6-7 wins.
I mean, that's not
low of a pick, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not enough to get you Trevor
Lawrence.
Lawrence.
There's a lot of bad teams.
No, but it could be a top 10 pick, right?
Yeah, but
there's a lot of bad teams.
And this is not the year to tank, probably.
I don't know. Justin Fields, pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're the Niners, you want to try to pull in Dak, right? I mean, this is still a team that should be good when everyone's healthy. But so I don't know. I mean, maybe you look at something like that. Who knows? But not a great year to tank of all the years to tank.
I would agree with that.
Because
I'll comment out this now. The Jets have 0 wins. The Jaguars, the Texans have 1 win. The Giants have 1 win. The Cowboys have 2 wins. The Vikings have 2 wins. The Falcons have 2 wins. That's a lot of teams they got to get under.
They're probably around.
Right. That's a good point, Jeff. I know we're talking a lot about the 49ers, and we'll talk about the Seahawks here in a bit. But it's really nice to bathe in 49ers tears for a little bit. So just going to take a second there. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting that a lot of the guys that I thought that were going to be the story, like Jason Verrett, he didn't do well. This past week against the Seahawks, didn't do well tonight. Like, I don't think he's quite the breakout star they thought he was. Eric Armstead, who they bet on instead of DeForest Buckner, does not look like the right guy to have bet on. DeForest Buckner looks like a beast in Indianapolis. Armstead does not. Javon Kinlaw, their high, interior lineman pick this year, does not look good. He looks like another Solomon Thomas, who was a high pick for them that didn't work out. So what has been, in my mind, the best roster in the league, and to some extent, they proved it again this year with all the injuries, and they were still competitive up until this past weekend. I think there's some questions there. And you can assume Nick Bosa comes back and is great, but you don't know for sure. And anyway, it's going to be interesting. I think, I don't know about you guys. I think I wouldn't say it's an automatic win, but I certainly am not fearing playing the 49ers when the Seahawks go back down there. What is it, week 17?
Yeah.
I was going to say there's 2 things here. One, I think, it's not probably too early to bury them for this year. But this is still a team, like all the guys that you talked about, right? Kinlaw, I mean, he's just a rookie. Armstead's still young. Bosa will be going into year 3. Ayuk will be a second-year player next year. Samuel will be going into year 3. A lot of these guys are still young. Mostert's still young.
Okay, so you're talking about moving forward. You're not talking about this year.
Right. I'm saying this year you can probably bury them for the most part, and that's pretty safe. But this is still a team that's going to be competitive in years to come.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's scary is if they can manage to stay competitive and maybe beat some bad teams, by the time week 17 rolls around, this team might be in a lot better shape. So they could be a much tougher team week 17 than what we saw last week.
I would have agreed with you there, and you still might be right. But there was a report out today, D Ford not recovering well enough from his shoulder, likely out for the year. Sherman, who was supposed to come back earlier in the year, they're like, he's not going to be back until at least week 11. Do they end up just shutting those guys down? Do those guys choose not to shut themselves down? Maybe I don't know. It's possible, but I don't know that I see the George Kittle maybe out for the year. We don't know. He thinks he's going to be back earlier. They think it might be. Anyway, so I guess we'll find out there. But the reason I think we're spending this much time on the 49ers, besides the fact that they're our chief rival and overall, and we just played them and destroyed them, which was super satisfying, is that's still the most talented roster, in this division. I think it's more talented than the Seahawks roster. If I had to pick one of them, other than quarterback for sure, I think the 49ers roster overall, when healthy, is better. So I think it's significant that team is struggling the way that they're struggling this year. I think it's also significant to note it's not easy coming off of a Super Bowl. And I still think we take it for granted what the Seahawks were able to do going back-to-back Super Bowls, and that's tough to do. It's really tough to do.
That Bing Bing Niner gang completely underestimated the difficulty of repeating good seasons coming off of, what you just said. Brian, I wanted to ask you this. Do you think the Niners re-sign Richard Sherman? He's in the last year of his deal.
I don't.
So
I kind of wonder what's going to happen there. I mean, I think that they would potentially think about it. I think Sherman would probably come back there, but I think they've got a lot of young corners that they could probably keep around for cheaper. And I just wonder if Sherman could get more elsewhere. I'll tell you what, I know it won't happen. Very unlikely to happen. I would swear to God, I would take Sherman over either of our starting corners.
Oh, not even close. Not even close.
Nathan, use your big boy word.
Oh, stop it. You would not take Shaquille Griffin over Richard Sherman today.
I I have not seen Richard Sherman in like
Okay,
several months.
assuming
And the last thing I saw him do was give up a pretty big play in a Super Bowl. Like, why
Shaquille Griffin wouldn't, or Quentin Dunbar, like they're
sure, but why I would not just assume that Sherman's going to come back and be better than Quill.
Here's the thing, though. Sherman has never been a physical specimen. That is not how he has been the player he is. He's cerebral. He reads routes. He jumps routes, and he plays the go route as well as any player in the NFL. I think he's a guy that if he wants to can play into his mid-30s at corner and be effective.
Sure, I'm not saying that Sherman's bad or anything. I don't know that Quill is suddenly that much like, I don't know. I think that's it's not even close kind of deal.
Let me put it this way, Nathan. If you could have Sherman at $6 million or $7 million, or maybe it's $8 million, or Quill at $14 million, what do you want? And one's on a short-term deal and one's on a 3 or 4 year deal.
Yeah, I'm probably gambling and going with Sherman on a short term.
Exactly, right? I don't think that's a hard decision.
No.
I don't think Shaquille's pulling that with how he's playing right now, even from an outside team. I really don't.
We'll see. So that's actually a good segue. We should talk a little bit about the injury situation. And let's start with the good news. Guys, Jamal Adams, he's practicing. That's got to be at least worth a first-round pick, that he's back on the practice field. We also are getting back.
It's worth something like 2 first-round picks, right?
Yeah. Well, he's got to earn the second first-round pick on the day of the game.
Okay.
But we also are not getting back, but we are adding Carlos Dunlap. And there's a couple others to note. We should probably be getting back Rasheem Green. But who are you more excited to see get on the field for the Seahawks this weekend? And it appears that Carlos Dunlap will play this weekend. That's at least how Pete Carroll has described it. Are you more excited to see Carlos Dunlap? Are you more excited to see Jamal Adams? Jeff, where are you at on this one?
That's a hard question. I'll go Dunlap just because of how inept the pass rush has been. And to see like an actual NFL pass rusher on our team, considering what we've been watching in the last 7 or 8 weeks, to me, that's just so exciting. And Jamal, I think we've kind of got a little excited about Ryan Neal when he was out, and they were playing a little better initially without him. And we kind of forgot about how good this guy was and like how good his first game was and some of the tackles he made. But man, to see like an actual NFL pass rusher on this D-line, I'm so excited for it. I'm going to go with Dunlap.
All right. Nathan, where are you? Adams or Dunlap?
Oh, it's Rasheem Green all the way. 100%. He was the number one sack.
Contrarian.
The number one sack getter last year. No one sacked like Rasheem Green sacked on the Seahawks last year.
I don't believe you.
I am. Of the 3 edge rushers, Dunlap, Adams, and Green, I'm most excited to see Rasheem Green get back on the field.
I don't believe you.
You're trolling.
He can play inside. He can play outside.
That is alcohol speaking.
That is not true.
That is alcohol speaking.
He's young. He's got potential. He's athletic.
Oh, shut the hell up, Mr. Fake Optimist. That's not true at all.
He is one of the least interesting pass rushers ever.
You're lying to me. This isn't you.
No, I like Rasheem Green.
I don't.
Why wouldn't I like Rasheem Green? He's fun. I mean, it's probably Adams. I don't know if Adams in that. I will forever be chasing that Falcons game version of Jamal Adams. Like,
yes,
that was incredible. That was, I think I said it was one of the best defensive individual defensive performances that I've seen in a long time, and that includes a lot of really great defenders on this team. So I'll be chasing that forever. I like Rasheem Green. I want to see this guy develop. He was extremely young, extremely physically talented. He took a step last year. I want to see if he can take another step this year. I'm really excited to see Rasheem Green again. I mean, these are 3 legitimately, like, it probably is Adams and then Dunlap and then Green for me. But like, Green is exciting to get back. I don't know what he'll do. I'm not telling you he's going to be great, but he's exciting.
That's shocking to me a little bit. I find Rasheem Green to be like
exceptionally mediocre.
That's so insanely. That's completely wrong. He is a pure upside player. Will he be good? Maybe not. He could be terrible.
Since when have you been a Rasheem Green stan?
Forever. I've always
liked this is like the Travis Homer defenders on Twitter. What's going on here?
No, Evan. I'm going to stand up for Nathan. I remember when he was drafted that Nathan was a fan of Rasheem Green from the beginning.
Rasheem Green has a ton of talent.
A ton. Let's go back. Let's look.
What the hell is this podcast?
I'm sorry if you haven't been paying attention to Rasheem Green, Evan. But here's the deal: they drafted him when what 20?
Oh my god!
He was 20.
Super young.
He was 20.
He's young.
He was coming off a 10-sack season, and I'm pretty sure he was a 3 Sigma athlete, right? Or he was pushing that. He was sparked out of his mind.
He's still 23.
Incredibly interesting as a prospect. He's incredibly raw, or when he was when he drafted. He needs to take big steps, but this is a guy who legitimately has a trajectory, an upside that is a really, he could potentially be a very important player to this team.
And the biggest upside selling point of Rasheem Green is that he came out of his mother's womb more recently than LJ Collier. That's what you're telling me.
That's a big deal. I mean, that matters. And no, he was also insanely more physically talented and produced more than LJ Collier ever did in a single season.
I don't disagree with your general notion. I just find the progress we saw from Rasheem Green last year was promising. It was good. It was not what I would call a flash. It was not where it was okay, this guy is. He was not Frank Clark from, first year to second year where you see this clear trajectory. I think Rasheem Green's trajectory right now is a productive rotational pass rusher, which is cool.
You're saying this group loves rotational pass rushers.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's not get started on Quentin Jefferson. That'll be the rest of the podcast. But yeah, I mean, I guess for me to be excited about Rasheem Green, I'd have to see something where I was like, oh, this guy is actually a starting defensive end who's capable of 8 to 10 sacks, at least at a ceiling. He might get there. I don't think that's out of the question, but to me, Rasheem Green is a 4 to 6 sack guy, probably.
Brian, Rasheem Green, fully healthy, where does he rank as a pass rusher in Seattle's current unit?
I mean,
that's not a trick question. I'm genuinely curious.
I know. He probably top 3.
Who would you put ahead?
Well, Dunlap.
Yeah, okay.
For sure. And we were talking about specifically defensive linemen. I mean, if I expand it out, to Bobby and those kind of guys, but
big fat guys in the trenches. That's the parameter.
I still would put Benson Mayowa above him. I know you guys think that's crazy, but I would put Mayowa above him.
I'm still mad at him.
Why are you mad at him, Jeff?
I'm still mad at him for that fucking offside penalty.
Oh, okay. That's fair.
I haven't got over that yet. I would have been willing to cut him. I'm still mad about that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
He's lost me. Benson Mayowa's in my doghouse.
Even though he is, Jeff, isn't he top 3? Would you put LJ Collier or, Brian
Robinson?
Alton Robinson. That's a good one.
That's who I was going to say too. Just purely as a pass rusher. That's
I think he's better than Mayo as a pass rusher.
Yeah.
He might be. I mean, look, I hope you're right. I hope that Rasheem Green comes back as a contributor. No doubt about it.
Well, I'll say this too. Exciting is maybe the wrong word. I'm excited to see him. I don't know that he is an exciting player yet. Super interested to see him, right? He's very interesting. He is a guy that if he can continue to go on the trajectory that they probably hoped for him when they drafted him, he could be another impact type player. Now, I'm not really expecting that this year because of the slow start that he's had with the injury and everything, but I'm really, really hopeful for him to continue to show growth once he kind of gets his feet back under him and is back in playing shape. And if he can do that, that's a big deal.
There's at least a yellow flag with him with this injury, though. It was a stinger, shoulder. Yep, sure. He's been out a while. Those used to be things you say, oh, you got a stinger, he'll be back next game, or even the next quarter. Now you're oh, his career might not be that long. So that's one to watch. Snacks Harrison, guys. I mean, is he ever going to suit up? Like, I look at the way Pete talks about it, and even the way Snacks talks about it on Twitter. It's gone from being totally clear that he's just eventually going to, be on the roster to, now maybe he has to outplay or, Puna Ford or Brian Monet or someone have to be injured. Like, is there a chance he's just going to stick on the practice squad? Like, or do you expect that he's finally going to be promoted sometime soon? Like, what's going to be the impetus to move him up? And when he moves up, whose snaps is Snacks taking? Jeff?
Yeah, I've kind of gotten that feeling. And the way they keep mentioning is that he's kind of clearly the number 3 nose tackle on the roster. And I think Brian Monet's play has, and we've joked about him all offseason, and I think he's been pretty good. And I think they view him as the insurance nose tackle. So he might not be on the roster he might be hanging around for a while. And he seems okay with it, which is a little surprising.
It's weird because teams have been offering to sign him to their active roster. Like, why would he be okay being a practice squad player for the Seahawks? Like, what about that? What's that?
I think he spent his whole career on bad teams. This is the first time he's been on a good team. And I think.
Yeah, but Tampa Bay wanted to sign him. It wasn't like some shit team wanted to sign him. Like,
he tweeted out the other day, though, when he was inactive before the Niner game, and he was like, hey, he basically said, shut up, everybody. I know my body, and I will play when I'm ready. And so I don't think this has anything to do with him not having a chance. I think Seattle will activate him as soon as probably he is ready to be activated, right? And so the idea that, like, he would jump ship at this point, like, I mean, why? He could have signed anywhere. He chose to come here. He's working himself into shape. He is an older guy at this point. He had no preseason, right? I mean, so it makes a ton of sense to me that he and that the team is just like, yeah, take 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever. We'll get you for the last third of the season in the playoffs, right? And you'll be at top shape. We're not going to rush you back, have you play poorly, have you get hurt, right? I mean, there's no rush on really. I mean, you can say that there's a rush on Seattle's side, but like Snacks is not going to. He's not a pass rusher, and that's really where this team probably needs the most help. And so it's not like he's going to be a huge difference maker today, and you'd rather have him fresh. You don't want him to get hurt. And he has said his body's not ready. So there's just no reason to force this. I know that we all want him to get back and see if he really is one of the best defensive linemen on this team, but why? I mean, they're 6-1, and like there's no reason to be hitting like emergency buttons at this point.
Because I want to see a defensive lineman, and I know for a fact that there are players on that defense that want to see him in front of them so that they can be making plays. So like, I admit it's super confounding to me. I get that he had to get in shape. That part I follow. This last weekend made sense to me because Benson Mayowa, I was guessing he was more hurt than they were acknowledging, and they were going to need to bring up Stephon Sullivan, which, by the way, it is Stephon, even though it's spelled like Steven, to play defensive end. This week, you got Carlos Dunlap. Mayowa is trying to make it back. I'm like ready, man. I'm ready to see this guy play. I really am. I hope we see him play this week. Evan, I've got a question for you. So a name showed up on the injury list this week. Yesterday, Greg Olsen did not practice because of a foot injury. Today, he was limited in practice. So an improvement that generally means he's probably on track to be available. But if Greg Olsen was not available, how would you feel? Like, would you be more like nervous about that potential impact to the team, or would you be more excited about the potential for somebody else to step forward?
This is a great setup. I appreciate this one. We all know I'm a big Will Dissly fan. You and I both are. Greg Olsen signed a 1-year deal It sounds like he wants to go into, TV. What's the word? Commentating after this 1-year deal. I do not think it's a big loss. I think Greg Olsen had a fairly hot start with the team the first couple of games. It seemed like Russ was really leaning on him for big third down conversions and sort of as a safety outlet. But over the past few weeks, he really hasn't been a vital contributor, I feel like, to this passing offense. Will Dissly has had several big plays. I just don't think it's a huge loss. I really don't. Like, the trade deadline passed, and I know there was some conversation about whether they would consider moving him, but it's a short answer to your question. I just don't think it's a very big loss.
Yeah, I mean, Nathan, one of the things that's interesting to me here, I mean, we talked about it, I think, a little bit, maybe in the chat, but it's interesting that Colby Parkinson came back from injury and they immediately put him on the roster. They could have slow played that. Like, there was no reason they had to put him on the roster as soon as they did. I think they had another week at least that they could have kept him off. And I can't remember. Did they cut Luke Wilson?
Yeah.
Yeah, they cut Luke Wilson. They signed him back to the practice squad, or have they done that yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. So do you think that there's the potential that they have plans to actually work Colby Parkinson into the game plan? Or is that just, I'm looking too much?
I don't know that they could have slow played Parkinson. Like, everybody that was on the injury report that was inactive last week was hurt, right? They would have had to have put a hurt person on the active list over him. I don't think
he was on the NFI list, so they didn't have to take him off the NFI list yet, is my point. Right? Like, he could have stayed on NFI for a while, but they basically.
That's true, but at the same time, like, same argument, right? I mean, they would have then signed somebody else to have on the roster for a week or popped up practice water, which, I mean, they could have done. So I think that probably bodes somewhat well for him, but I probably wouldn't read too much into it at this point. And I also wouldn't completely discard the notion that Olsen just being on the field offers something, right? I mean, that defenses are going to look at him just a little bit different, that even if he's not connecting with Russ a lot, this is something that Russ wanted on the team. He's a vet. He understands a lot of this, right? So, I don't know that like Parkinson is going to suddenly like jump up and take his spot anytime soon.
I don't know, Jeff. I have I always love new players. Like, new players or new opportunity. There's something new there. I've seen enough of Olsen where I'm like, okay, I'm fine that he's on the roster. I don't dislike Greg Olsen, but he has not been the integral part of the offense that I had hoped that he could be. And he is not owning the middle of the field and giving defenses something that they have to worry about and making it easier for Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. So I'm all for give me more Will Dissly and Colby Parkinson. Let's see what that looks like. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the tight end right now is a real big part of their offense. It's not just Olsen. It's really everyone. I think Olsen had a big game in that Dallas game where he had a bunch of third down receptions in that final drive. But other than that, Dissly's getting 1 or 2 catches a game. Olsen's around there. Hollister maybe gets 1 target a game. So it doesn't seem it seems like they're going to go heavy on the 2 wide receivers. Maybe there's a game later in the year where the tight ends are more focused, but I think it's just a good thing to have depth. And with Parkinson, I can see maybe he becomes a red zone weapon and a guy they can use in situational. He's 6'7".
Yep.
So he's a guy that if you can kind of come up with some red zone plays for him and you have to cover him and DK and some of those monsters they have on their team, it's kind of exciting. I don't see them being a big part of their offense because really no tight end is, but there's definitely some things you can do with him that you can't do with any other player on their team because of how big he is.
Well, I think Will Dissly has made more of his opportunities than Greg Olsen's made of his. Will Dissly has not gotten a lot of opportunities this year, but I think he's done Will Dissly things with them. So I certainly would be ready to see him get a little bit more. One more name on the injury report I want to call out for folks to react to. New name showed up today. Was not on the injury report yesterday. Showed up today as did not practice. So that's not good. David Moore showed up today as did not practice, ankle/back. I don't know if his ankle's connected to his back or that's just two separate injuries or what's going on. But either way, he did not practice. If David Moore doesn't play this weekend, how does that affect the offense? Nathan.
Oh, yeah. Dayna's not here, so I just want you all to know that Dayna has really bad opinions about this one. And I'm here to tell you that it's really bad because Seattle, while Lockett and Metcalf are probably, am I going to go way out of line here if I say they're the best duo in the league? I guess Dallas and stuff. We talked about this before. Anyways, very good, right? And Moore has shown up, been awesome. They get real thin real fast after that. Dorsett is out. Gordon's not back yet. And so it's like Freddie Swain and Penny Hart, right? I mean, it gets a little, with as much as they want to throw and the way that they've used Moore in a couple really unique ways, like it gets a little dicey there. So I would say that one, David Moore being out is a little scary, and two, they actually should be kind of aggressively looking for somebody to just be depth, right? I mean, you don't need to go out and make a big move for anybody, and obviously that's passed anyways. So they just probably need a little bit more filler there behind those first three guys.
Yeah, and the good thing is you can stash guys on the practice squad now. It doesn't have to be age or games played. Like even a guy like Paul Richardson, who they brought in earlier in training camp, like I agree with Nathan. Like they are dangerously thin that if one of Lockett or Metcalf get hurt, who steps in? Like, are you comfortable with Freddie Swain? Yeah.
John Ursua on the practice.
He's the guy, right? Like,
oh my God.
He's the number one call up probably, right?
Aaron Fuller's another option on the practice squad. I'm just checking out their practice squad right now.
Like they're very thin. I do agree with Nathan.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. I would be curious to see how they played that. I hope we don't have to. I'm more bullish on Freddie Swain. I think it gets pretty thin after Freddie Swain. I thought he's done pretty well with his chances, but it is something to be aware of. So I know we're well into it at this point. Let's make sure we take some Patreon questions. If you haven't already, folks, sign up. Patreon.com/HawkBlogger. Get immediate access to our Slack channel. It's $5. What are you waiting for? This is the season to be in. There's plenty of good stuff to talk about. We're there all week. Nathan, one of the benefits of being a patron is that you get to ask them what questions they have. And we're going to take those questions and answer them today. So let's do our like rapid fire, one person answers one question approach. See how many we can get through.
And Nathan, I'm impressed you remembered to do it since you've been day drinking all day. I logged into Slack today all week.
Sure. I worked today.
I logged in
like 10 hours, man. I haven't been day drinking.
I logged into Slack.
Also, by the way, I was pretty hungover yesterday, so I didn't drink yesterday either. I'll have you know.
Can you drink every podcast, please?
Way off here, Evan. Slander. Okay, Jeff, I got one for you. Yeah. Silk wants to know, on a scale of Jimmy G to Russ, how good is Josh Allen?
Well, how do you answer that scale? So what? Russ is a 10 and Jimmy G is what, a 3? Like,
I think Jimmy G is a 0 in this scale. So okay. in I think the parameters here, we may be overthinking it, but from bottom, like worst starter quality to best quarterback that we've ever seen in our lifetime, where would you rank Josh Allen?
He is an above average starter with exciting upside but scary downside. So I'd put him like a 7 out of 10.
How would you rate him like relative to Deshaun Watson?
He's significantly worse than Deshaun Watson.
Okay.
So Allen, if
Kirk
you've
Cousins?
ever seen him, has crazy upside. Like he could be like Big Ben in his prime. He's got the crazy size, massive arm, but he has incredibly bad accuracy, and he gets incredibly jumpy around pressure and starts spinning in circles and running around and does some of the crazier, like weird plays you'll ever see in a game. So he is just not a traditional quarterback by any means. He runs a lot. His accuracy at the beginning of the year was like in the 70%. And everyone's like, okay, he's figured it out in the last 4 weeks. So half his games, he's become the exact same player as last year, where he's just over 60%. And he is a very strange quarterback that just is not traditional in any way. It's just he has extremely high highs and extremely low lows. So it's a roller coaster following him. He's getting better, but the last month of the year, you've seen the danger of Josh Allen, who was like a running joke on Twitter last year. The advanced football people, they love laughing at Josh Allen because when he misses so bad. So he's better than Jimmy G because he has that upside, but he's just not a refined player like Watson is.
And I think it's important to say he has cooled off in the last several weeks from that MVP campaign.
Yeah, there was a significant difference. His first 4 games were like he's talked with Russ. His last 4 games were like Sam Darnold. So it's been pretty high highs and low lows.
Just a quick aside on that one. Not related to Josh Allen, but Deshaun Watson. How you can have a team with Deshaun Watson that has 1 win is
meet Bill O'Brien.
It's astounding. And also, one more tangent on that. Seahawks tried to trade for Jacob Martin.
Yeah, that one hurts. That hurts on a couple of levels.
I will never forget how much shit I got within minutes of the Clowney trade when I said, Jacob Martin hurts. And everyone was like, who gives a shit about Jacob Martin? I'm like, you're going to care about that.
Now everyone's like, who gives a shit about Clowney? He's bad. Rah. Anyways, all right.
Yeah.
Moving on.
We're not petty.
All right, Brian. Russell Wilson's hair drip wants to know, do you think DJ Dallas has done enough to move up on the running back depth chart?
I don't. And I'm a huge DJ Dallas fan. In fact, I've been among the chief, critics of Travis Homer saying that DJ Dallas should be getting his snaps. I still think he is a more dynamic playmaker for sure than Travis Homer and probably than Carlos Hyde. What gave me pause about DJ Dallas last week was he did not do well in short yardage situations or when there wasn't a hole to run in. He basically went lateral and made himself incredibly easy to tackle and did not get the yardage that was there. So I would hope this week we see him attack the line of scrimmage a little bit more aggressively when at the goal line in short yardage and not go laterally. So that to me was at least a yellow flag. He cannot be dancing laterally in this offense. He's got to be able to take the yardage that's there. So I think a lot of people thought he did really well. I thought he did not do as well as I would have hoped. I had higher expectations.
All right, Evan, Professor Crockett wants to know, 2-parter here. Can Dwayne Brown play forever? And is Brandon Shell a long-term investment? Will they sign him long-term, or are they going to shuffle there?
It's a really good question. First of all, 2 questions, I guess. Dwayne Brown is, I just want to confirm his age before I misspeak, 35 years old. Andrew Whitworth is 38 or 39 with the Rams and played at like an all-pro level the past couple of years. I don't remember the specific wording of the first question because I'm a little bit drunk, but yes, Dwayne Brown can play for many years to come. I actually think he's somebody they should consider extending on another 2-3 year deal type of situation. Brandon Shell has been one of the biggest surprises of this season, frankly. And Brian, you, me, maybe Jeff, maybe Nathan are happy to say we're eating big time crow on this one, and it's awesome to say that. Like, this is we really did not have high expectations for Brandon Shell. We were I think the specific wording was Jermaine Ifedi, but without the penalties. So obviously he's completely outperformed those expectations. I do think Brandon Shell is somebody you look at extending beyond 2021 because he is signed to a 2-year deal. It's like 2 years, 10 million or 11 million, something like that. So the Seahawks did, get him under lock for 2021. So I think it's something you consider for sure.
All right. Jay Brandt has a question for me, and it's what have I been drinking today? And again, I have not been drinking all day. If anyone from work happens to watch this, I waited until 6:00. I did not drink it all today. I promise you. I cannot promise that I was 100% focused on work all day, but I was not drinking. But I'm drinking a Bibb and Tucker bourbon, which is pretty good. And then he wants to know if me or Evan have slept more than 10 hours since Tuesday night. I have, but it's
combined or per night?
Combined.
Yeah.
10 hours sleep.
Yeah. Mine's been fitful, but I have definitely slept more.
What are you at?
Like sleep wise? I don't know.
Yeah, like combined hours, like over the past 2 nights.
I'm sleep training a not even 2-year-old, so I have not slept a ton, that's for sure. But I've definitely slept probably 18 at least. I'm getting at least 16.
Jesus, you slept more than me. You probably slept like 14, frankly.
Wow.
Okay. All right, Jeff. Kind of along the same question as the DJ Dallas question. Has Alton Robinson done enough to earn more snaps when Dunlap and Benson are active?
I do think he has. And one of the running things on our thread, and we get upset every week before last week, is like, why isn't this guy getting more snaps? They're playing so many low ceiling players. He's one of the few guys who, when he does get chances, shows something. So I think, especially with Mayo banged up and they're easing in a new player, Dunlap, I think he has earned more snaps. I think he looked pretty good as a rusher. I think he looked good as a defensive lineman. And his first game with major snaps was against a team that throws a lot at you from the scheme perspective. 49ers, they throw a lot of confusing looks at you, and he handled it pretty well. He didn't look like an all-pro or a Pro Bowler or something, but he looked like an NFL player. And compared to some of the guys they've been trotting out, that's a big upgrade. And so, yeah, I want to see players with high ceilings. So I do think he deserves more playing time.
Okay, last two. And I'll kind of just throw these out here. The first one, I think I know the answer from everyone. Killian wants to know, is DK Metcalf the best all-around player on the Hawks? I think for me, I can't get behind saying he's the best all-around player. He might be one of the best players, but whatever he is, I would not describe him as a all-around player quite yet. He is extremely good at what he does, and he is learning a lot and getting better at a lot of other things. But I don't know. Does anyone disagree? Do you see DK as a particularly well-rounded player at this point?
Well, you got to say who you think is the best. If you
is that including Russ or
no? Eliminate the quarterback position.
Because
eliminate Russ quarterback. Because I assume you start with Russ.
Well, you start with Russ.
I was going to say
clearly the best,
but let's
player.
Eliminate the quarterback position. It's a better discussion.
So I think there's
gotta be Jason Myers then, right?
Yes,
100% agreed. 100%.
Actually, there's a question in here from Jonathan Taylor. He wants to know, Evan, if you cried when Jason Myers missed that kick.
When he made his first mistake of the year?
Yeah, when he
I did not.
And torpedoed his percentage to he's at 50% now because he's only kicked 2 balls all year.
Nathan, you're a coward. First of all, no, I did not cry when he made his first mistake of the year.
Okay, so best all-around player on the team. If you throw out Russ, to me, it's Dwayne Brown, Jamal Adams, and however good you still think Bobby is.
Ooh, I think KJ is up there.
I'd take.
No,
your face.
KJ's the next tier.
We're talking about DK. Are you really putting KJ on the level of DK? You wanna call this dude Megatron? You're giving me crap day in and day out about Calvin Johnson.
So
KJ,
we're not talking enough about KJ.
Oh my god,
he's been playing so well for ongoing 2 years.
Still,
he really has.
Still,
all around player. I'm not talking the
DK
best in one area.
All pro in his position. KJ, is a solid veteran, good player.
Wait a second. Who's the best receiver on this team?
So that's the other question. Is he even the best receiver on the team?
Yes.
He's definitely not the best all-around receiver on this team.
He's not the best all-around receiver on this team. Tyler Lockett is absolutely a better all-around receiver.
I would agree with that.
Because Lockett is amazing on the deep stuff.
Lockett does not get nearly enough attention.
Yeah.
I think Lockett does pretty much everything well.
But yeah.
The key words are all around.
Yeah.
And I think Jamal Adams is probably the right
Jamal
answer.
Adams is definitely the best all-around player.
Yeah.
Well, nice to know that for sure, wouldn't it?
Edge player, an edge rusher.
Well, he was hurt.
Also,
he had a groin injury. It's not his fault.
I know. I just want to see the guy on the field making a difference because
Or Ethan Posick might be.
Come on.
I think Posick is actually underrated. We should be talking more about him, but I don't know that he checks the all-around box. Okay, last one. I thought this was really interesting because I think your gut reaction is going to be different than what it is when you think about it for a second. Braxton Kendall asks, do the Seahawks draft a tight end in this year's draft?
Well, do they have any picks left?
Yes, they have a few.
They should.
Anybody think? Does anybody feel strongly? Yes. I think the gut is kind of no, right? Or that it's low priority. Hollister, maybe not a long-term player on this team. Olsen, obviously older. Disley has been good this year, but has not been what he was. And who knows what Parkinson is. So this is a team that wants to run some multi-tight end sets, right? Obviously, they felt strong enough about having tight end depths that they paid Olsen a lot to come in and play alongside Disley. So to me, it's not crazy, but I have a hard time thinking it'll be any kind of a real priority for them.
That's where I agree.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. That covers it.
Thank you, patrons. You can get your own question asked and answered. Join over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. $5 gets you in, immediate access to the Slack channel. And let's talk about the Bills for a bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, we probably should talk about the Bills game.
Yeah, the chat's like, guys, come on. There's a game this week. So 10 a.m. game. Seahawks have done very well. Eastern time, 10 a.m. games. This is the first time they've played in Buffalo since 2008.
I was at that game.
They played in 2012 in Toronto. I was at that game.
Me as well.
And it's hard for me.
How'd that game go?
What's that?
How'd that game go?
It was awesome.
So well.
Yeah, did it go pretty good?
Yeah, they won like 50-17.
It was one of the biggest blowouts of this era, like just a total beatdown.
It was so good. Russell was so good that day.
Yeah.
But I do remember the 2008 game when Marshawn Lynch ran for like a 25-yard touchdown against us.
That game sucked.
That was not so good.
I was at that game. It was horrible.
So let's just start with this, guys. How good are the Bills? They're 6-2. Seahawks are 6-1. Josh Allen was an MVP candidate 4 weeks into the season. He certainly is not that right now. You guys going into this game, are you feeling confident? Are you feeling like nervous? Like, give me your assessment of like where the Bills rank relative to the teams that the Seahawks have played so far. And Jeff, you are the resident expert proximity-wise. Just being close, you have to.
They're a local team.
So tell us what we should be expecting this weekend.
So the Bills are the local team where I live in Toronto. If you turn on the radio here or you turn on the TV on a Sunday, they're always on. So I know a lot about that team. I used to actually cover them prior to joining this blog. I covered the Bills for like 3 years, but no one is left from that team. So to answer your question, they're a team going into the year that I thought was going to be like one of the harder opponents on their schedule. And they started, I believe, 4-0. But over the last month, they've become a very different team than I would have thought. They were so good defensively last year. I know Nathan was very big on the job Sean McDermott was doing, who's one of the more popular coaches around the league. Sean McDermott is a fantastic coach. Brian Dable, they have a great offense coordinator. The thing that's been so surprising about them is they were stacked defensively last year. One of the better defenses in the league. They were a playoff team. I think Evan pointed out in the chat this week, but I think they're 29th in the NFL in DVOA on defense.
24.
So their defense, 20, what is it?
24.
24. Their defense has been really disappointing. They loaded up their defensive line. They have two good young linebackers. Their safeties are usually good, but they've had injury issues. Their defensive line hasn't been very good, and they're getting crushed in the run game. So they've been very, very disappointing defensively, and you combine that from a team that Josh Allen's been really high and then really low, they're not the team everyone quite thought they would. And they have a negative point differential. They're -1, I believe, this year, where like Miami is +58. A lot of people around the league think they're sort of frauds. So they have a great receiving core. They have some talented players, but as a team, they don't look like that stout, tough, hard-nosed team that everyone thought they would.
Well, I mean, so you're saying that signing Quentin Jefferson didn't solve all their defensive problems?
All right, let's
Quentin
go. We're
Jefferson
doing this.
is absolutely going to destroy the Seahawks offensive line.
Oh, come on.
Destroy. He'll have 2 sacks.
Come on.
He'll have 2
Damian
sacks.
Lewis will have to retire after this game. He'll be so embarrassed by what
That was one of the worst off-season moves by the Seahawks, but we can move past that. Jeff, are you concerned at all about their receiver group? John Brown, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley. I know you mentioned them briefly. I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's absolutely. I'm concerned about every receiver group that plays the Seahawks this year because of how bad
even though they're going up against the best secondary in the NFL.
Well, we kind of missed on that one, but yeah, the strength of their team absolutely is receivers. Diggs has been way better than people thought, considering he went to like an inaccurate quarterback. Cole Beasley is a really good route runner, good in the slot. And John Brown, when he plays, has made a big difference for them. The splits with him in and out are pretty significant. So, yeah, not the defense. The strength of this team this year has not been the running game as well. It's been the receiving core. So, absolutely, I'm concerned. And absolutely why getting Jamal back and having the Shaq Griffin doesn't look like he's going to play. So, It's another Trey Flowers game. So, yeah, if there's one way for them to beat us, that's the way.
Do you guys put any like stock in the fact that they swapped Trey Flowers and Quentin Dunbar last week? So Trey was playing his normal side of the field that he played last year as a starter, as opposed to the rest of the season he's been playing the opposite side. And that over the last 2 weeks of the season, it's only 2 weeks, but it's 2 weeks of him starting. He is the 6th ranked cornerback in the NFL, according to PFF. Do you think that I'm not saying he's the 6th best corner? You know, I don't think that's the case. But do you put any stock in the fact that maybe, you know, he's finding some footing, that he can be less than a total liability on the field? Nathan, I saw you smirking. So what do you think?
I was smirking about something very unrelated.
Okay.
But, no, because I don't think that last week was a particularly challenging outing for him. He may very well have played at that level. But I mean, who was he even lining up against? Like, I literally don't even remember. Like Dante Pettis, who got cut this week, or like, I mean, so we need more time before this is a guy that we've seen just absolutely thrashed for like going all the way back to that Packers game. And I think probably before that, I don't think any of us were particularly high on him. So no, I think we need to see a lot more before we start to get confident in Trey Flowers.
All right. I don't know if I totally agree.
You sound so defeated.
What's that?
You suddenly on the Trey bandwagon?
No, I'm not. Certainly not on the Trey bandwagon, but I thought he played well last week. I don't think it mattered who he was. I thought that he is a guy who has made any player look good. He's been that bad. Last week, he was breaking on the ball and making plays at the time that the ball got there. He looked more competent and more confident. So do I think he's turned the corner? No. But do I have like more reason to be hopeful than I did before last week? Yeah, I absolutely do. So I think this is a very tough matchup. Both of these receivers are amazing route runners and they're quick. And that is not what he's necessarily built for. So I don't know. We'll see. I am curious. I'm curious to see JJ Reed against Cole Beasley. It does not look like Ugo Amadi's going to make it back this week. So Evans, whining about needing to go to sleep because he's so tired and
so late. It's 10:05 right now.
He's such a wuss. So we got to kind of get into it a little bit further before we let him retire. Is this a game you expect the Seahawks to win? We're not going to get into predictions quite yet, but like, I don't get the sense that any of you are nervous about this game. This is a 6-2 Bills team on the road. Are any of you nervous about this game? Not to say that they couldn't lose, but like, I don't get the sense that any of you are nervous about this game.
It just kind of depends what Bills team we get, frankly. Like, they feel like a very inconsistent team on both sides of the football. It really depends on what Josh Allen we get on Sunday. I mean, would you guys disagree? Like, if we get the MVP Josh Allen, the dual threat, runner passer, then yeah, we could be in for a really tough game. But who knows?
More as the Seahawks offense and obviously the Seahawks defense. Like, I think if the Seahawks offense goes out there and puts up another 34+ point game, I don't think the Bills are gonna. I don't think the Bills are a team that are gonna put up that kind of points.
Just to be clear, we are currently consistent in our weather projections. We are 65 degrees and sunny for Sunday, which bodes well for Russell Wilson. So
perfect weather.
And
Nathan, you're wrong, but continue.
The last 2 games the Bills have played, they did not score a single touchdown against the Jets, who have maybe the worst team in the NFL. I watched a lot of that game. They struggled. They should have lost to the Jets, and they barely beat the Cam Newton team. I know we did too, but that team now, New England, who's missing all their receivers, Cam Newton fumbled inside the 10-yard line. That was a game they should have lost as well. So maybe the Bills deserve some credit for stealing these games. They probably didn't play very well, but just watching them the last 2 weeks, they look very underwhelming. Maybe I'm over living in the moment, but I was very unimpressed with how they played in both those games.
Yeah, I also feel like Jamal Adams and Carlos Dunlap are not insignificant additions.
And Jamal knows the Bills, man. He played them twice a year.
He did. He was a Jet for all those times. So let's go ahead and do our predictions. We'll go around the room here. And Nathan, let's start with you. I always like coming to you first because you say you're never prepared. So that's intentional. So what's your expectation of how this game goes? What's the score of this game?
I don't know. This is going to be much different than a lot of the games that we've seen so far. So I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring than like maybe that Dallas game or something like that. But I think it's going to be like 31-28 Seahawks. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a lot of these games, like I said, where maybe Seattle's up like 31-17 and then, they do their normal fourth quarter, whatever it is they do in the fourth quarter and give up points and make it a little closer than it probably should be.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm around the same. I'm going to go 34-27 Seattle. I think it's a game that Seattle's going to be leading and they get it a little too close at the end. They get within 1 touchdown and we're all freaking out, but I think they are able to pull it out. I watched them play against 2 of the worst offenses in the NFL and the Jets and the Patriots, and they were right hanging on by a thread in those games. To go against maybe the number 1 or number 2 offense in the NFL, they don't have a good second corner. I don't think they can match up with Seattle. And this is a game before the year I probably thought was an automatic loss. So I'm going a pretty comfortable win for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I think the story of Sunday will be Seattle's defense. They've got Jamal Adams coming back. They've got Snacks. Potential. I don't think Rasheem Green is technically coming back this Sunday, he will be officially.
Yeah, Saturday,
okay,
they should activate him.
Okay. They've got some reinforcements coming. I think it's a pretty big deal, especially Jamal Adams. I think this is actually going to be the first low scoring game of the season. I could see this being like 20-10 Seahawks. I don't think the Bills are going to score a lot of points on this Seahawks defense. I think it's going to be a step forward for them.
That's a fascinating prediction, actually. Like, I don't see that at all. So this will be a good test to see how we're seeing things. But I think the Seahawks offense is in a zone. I mean, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Russell Wilson. I think they're gaining confidence and gaining momentum. And I don't see the Bills' the best thing the Bills have to offer is a pass rush, and the Seahawks offensive line has been excellent. So I think there's points to be scored here for sure for the Seahawks. And in fact, I also think there's turnovers to be taken from Josh Allen and the Bills. So I think this is not going to be close. I think this is going to be 38-17 Seahawks. I think it's going to be Seahawks have scored under 31 points once this year. And that was 27 points in the rain after scoring 0 points in the first half against the Vikings. I think the Seahawks team scores at least in the mid 30s. So yeah, I think this is going to be a really positive game for the Seahawks. I'm super interested to see how Carlos Dunlap plays. Very eager to see Jamal Adams back. And guys, I'm hoping that this is a big hope. I'm hoping Ken Norton doesn't go crazy with the blitzes. Like they had some success last week. Utilize it. It's fine. It's good. But don't make it 70% of your play calls and expect the secondary to hold up, because that's just going to be a nightmare. I mean, that's just going to leave John Brown and Stephon Diggs with serious challenges for the secondary. So anyway, I think it's going to be a good weekend for the Seahawks. And then we get the Rams after that. So we're in the middle of this 5-game gauntlet for the Seahawks. They are 1-1. We all had our predictions about what we wanted them to do. Generally speaking, we all wanted them at least to go 4-1. 3-2 is the low bar. So this is the hump game in Buffalo. So anything else you guys wanted to cover before we sign off and let Evan get his beauty sleep?
We had a couple of super chat donations, but Killian asked the question about whether DK was the best all-around player. He made a super chat donation and said that his question was a little misunderstood. And he wants to know, if we switched DK to the other side of the ball, would he still play at the same level? We just lost Evan. He just dropped off in the middle of my question. That's so incredibly rude. Wow.
Like, yeah, I got to go to sleep.
Okay, fine. Do you think that would you play DK at corner if you switched him to defense? And do you think he'd be just as good? Would he be Richard Sherman good? Could you coach him up? I think yes, right? We all agree. Yes, he'd at least be Richard Sherman good.
I don't believe he'd be Richard Sherman.
Oh, okay.
No.
Pretty good though. Pretty good.
I think he'd be pretty good. I like it. I don't know. I like him more at like defensive end or something like that.
I'd probably leave him at receiver. He seems all right there.
Yeah, let's keep him there.
I wouldn't break what's not, or fix what's not broken.
Yes. All right. Anything else?
So I'm interested in your thoughts on this. Danny O'Neill wrote an article today that Pete should be coach of the year because of the switch to the pass first offense and his role in that. Is that crazy talk, or is it something that Nathan's been saying we should be doing this for years? Should he be credited for that, or is this something that was just totally obvious?
It's a great question.
I think he gets credit for it. Why wouldn't he? I mean, it's yes, he should have been doing this for a long time, but he's a very old man, and it's not a small thing. I don't mean that like it's a joke, but like, I mean, really though, he has been doing something a certain way for a long time, and you got to give him a lot of credit for changing. And maybe he should have done it a couple of years ago, but like to do it at all, I mean, we see a lot of coaches that are very, very stubborn. So I would give him a ton of credit for it, and the team is great right now. Like, Tomlin should be in there. He's not a front runner by any means, but I think he's in the conversation at least.
Yeah, he said an interesting tidbit the other day in his press conference where he said he consulted with Marv Levy in the offseason, and Marv Levy kind of invented this path, even though Marv Levy's super old. He's probably like 83 now.
He's like the only coach that's alive that's older than Carroll.
But Marv Levy invented that like K-gun, like pure pass first offense that the Bills were dominant with. So I found that kind of cool, but I don't know if Marv can put together a sentence anymore. Like, he's got to be like in his 80s.
I love the idea that Carroll changed by going to the only coach who's older than him. And was like, oh, look at this revolutionary thought. All right.
How old is Marv? I got to look this up.
For coach of the year. For me, like, the guy I've been most impressed with.
Oh my God, Marv's 95.
I was gonna say he's a lot older than 80. That dude's
old.
Ancient.
I think Brian Flores is like the guy that I'm most impressed with the coaching job he's done so far this year with the talent he's got on the roster in Miami.
Yeah, I don't know that he'll win enough to get it, although he should.
I agree.
He should be in the conversation.
He's awesome.
Yeah. So who else is in the running? You said Tomlin. Why the hell would Tomlin win it? He's got a good roster. I don't see. I mean, yes, they're winning a lot of games, but like,
I mean, that's a lot of times what it comes down to. I
I
mean,
hate that way of looking at Coach of the Year. You're right. That is how they often vote. But like, shouldn't it be like who's making the most of the talent that they've got? Like
who is it? I'm looking.
yeah, but like even if they end up going like 14-2 or something, like that's a great job. Even if you were handed a great team, right? I mean, the Packers coach, Arians will probably get some love. What?
Bills coach?
Yeah, McDermott. If they can
McDermott is a very
rebound,
good coach.
Yeah,
he's a very good coach.
I mean,
honestly, all these teams are
honestly,
talented though.
If the 49ers hadn't been so injured or like a little bit less injured and kept on there, I would have said Shanahan's in the
Yeah,
race.
before last week, he was gaining a lot of that talk, but I think that's gone now.
Yeah.
Rabel. I think Rabel will get love.
Yeah, Rabel. They're starting to fizzle a bit, but
Maybe the Cardinals coach, Cliff.
Yeah,
I'm interested to see how they finish the year.
Yeah, a lot of these teams you got to see. Like, there's a lot of season left on this, right? So.
It's not ridiculous to say that Pete should be in the running for that. I think there's been some years I think he's done more with less, but yeah, it's an interesting question. All right, everybody, let's let you get back to whatever you're watching. I'm sure we can guess. Have a great night. If you haven't already, click subscribe, click the bell icon so you get notified when we go live. And join over at patreon.com/hawkblogger. Hope to see you over there. See you in the Slack channel. And take care, everybody.